Are you tired of deer chewing up your garden and everything else around your home? New at 6, Rick Dayton found some ways to keep them out that are inexpensive and last forever.
Oh,
she's eating the flowers.
not those.
Ask a gardener. They'll tell you deer seem to be everywhere.
They're coming into areas that have never been affected by the deer before, and that's what people are seeing, is the deer coming in closer to the house, and they'll eat just about anything.
With the arrival of spring, the deer pressure has lessened a bit, but many say much of the damage has already been done.
They're forced out of the forest. There's nothing to eat. Our stuff, a lot of times, is the first stuff to come up, especially something like hosta is one of their favorite foods. That's a nice soft green. They love it. And boom, the hosta's gone.
Remember these 3 things to keep the deer away from your garden.
The most important thing to do with deer is some kind of physical barrier. Now, you might not be able to fence your entire property, but you can fence off certain plants that you see that they love.
Yet fencing your entire property is not feasible and would be very costly.
So, Doug, a fence doesn't have to be a 10-foot high fence. You can use something smaller.
Right. If you just want to cover the plant, some cases I might put some stakes up here and just use this deer netting, and I've got lots of deer netting, and just put it around the plant, over the plant. You know, it almost becomes invisible, at least until the plant gets going and the deer can't destroy the whole thing.
Deer netting is inexpensive. The deer are afraid to get tangled in it, and it can be used year after year. There's another low-cost method.
50-pound monofilament, and then this is actually something called curling ribbon I found at the craft store. I was looking for something called bird tape, but this works great.
So it's cheap?
Cheap, the wind blows it, there's some motion in it, and it's shiny so they can see it.
Even if the deer manage to get to your plants, you can discourage them from grazing on your plants by spraying.
Most of these deterrents are naturally based, and most of them smell bad. And so the deer, they come up to it, they're like, oh, I'm not gonna, no way, that smells terrible.
Oster suggests rotating 2 or 3 different products to keep the deer from becoming used to just one smell.
You can see how these are just completely devastated by the deer. If I can keep them off this, maybe they'll come back.
If you can't keep the deer out, learn what they like to eat. That's tip number 3.
There's nothing we can say that deer will not eat. We can say things that don't prefer. Daffodils are one of the things that we're almost sure they'll never take. But on the opposite end, tulips are their favorite food.
Viburnum is a pretty flowering bush that deer tend to leave alone. Doug learned that sometimes you have to substitute for your favorites in an effort to deer-proof your garden.
I've switched most of my plantings to daffodils. I grow some tulips, but they're behind a fence. And that's the only way that I can get any tulips to bloom.
And actually, there's one more thing that often works.
Between those 3 things and maybe a fast dog who doesn't like deer, those are the 4 things that we try to do to stop the deer from getting in the garden.
Happy gardening. Rick Dayton, KDKA TV News.